welcome to the stream, bro. Just got home, and I'm authentically reaching out the olive branch to Australians. G'day, mate. Should be all right. Throw another shrimp on the barbie. That's what I'm doing. See, authentically. Hey, big A, just voted in our Aussie election. It's a mess. But did you, be honest with me, Nike Nonk, be honest. When I opened the stream, were you like, oh, that's Australian? Were you convinced? Were you like, oh, wait a minute, where'd H-Rock go? Because there's an authentic Australian on stream. Because of the way I hit the accent so well. Good day, mate. Oi, a kangaroo. And is a kangaroo court just a regular court over there? That's very good. That's very good. Hey, good day, sir. Good day. I just finished recording the Patreon up of the podcast, and I just rushed home so that I could stream today. I have some real shit I want to talk about today. I'm gonna get serious. I'm gonna get real. Is there live updates? Live updates, Australian election. Can you guys guess? This is gonna sound shocking if you've watched my content. If you've watched my content, could you guys guess what the #1 top issue for voters is in Australia? Now, you probably think it's something uniquely Australian, like kangaroo attacks. Can't be housing, right? I mean, it's cost of living. It's cost of living. Cost of living, comma, housing is the #1 issue in Australia. Shocker, dude. It's almost like the same thing is true of Canada or of America or of Europe or of, I'm Australian and I say it's not enough kangaroos to ride to work. You think your politicians need to institute some sort of kangaroo breeding program so that you have more roos to get to work. Get to work, by the way. Well said. Let's do a quick check here. Australians vote in elections shaped by cost of living, housing concerns. It's election day in Australia, where 18 million voters will determine who the next prime minister will be. Anthony Albanese is seeking re-election, and his challenger's Peter Dutton. Cost of living is the main election issue. Donald Trump also looms over the vote, as Australia, whose people value mateship of friendship and loyalty, is not spared from the U.S. president's tariffs. We're f***ing up our mateship with Australia? That's one of the coolest things we have. I want Australians to call me mate. My Yankee mate. No. Not our mateship, bro. It's C-word from now on. Relax. I know that Australians can say it to each other, but when you say it outside of it, it's a little harsh, a little strong. What if they all just elect a kangaroo? Let's check Polymarket. It looks like Albanese is at 95.2% chance of victory. It's looking pretty over for my man Voldemort Peter Dutton. I mean, this is a very similar to Canada situation. Even the timeline is the same. This is just a very Canada situation, except without a step down. I guess what's interesting is Anthony did not have to step down. He had a Trudeau. Actually, H-Rock, there's a little bit more nuance to that. So I'm going to add a bonus offline edition again, because when you cover an election live, you don't get to say everything you want to say. So little bonus for the Clips viewers. Okay. Yes, Australia's election was a lot like Canada's in that these graphs are very similar. Okay, there's a conservative party that is leading dramatically, running primarily on like things are broken, cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. And then Trump comes to power, starts adding some chaos into the mix, trying to tariff your country. People respond to that, get a little more nationalistic, go with the stability of the current party, and also just don't want to support the guy that's most similar to Trump. And in this election, that was Peter Dutton of the coalition, okay? He was Trump light. In fact, they ran a pretty successful attack ad campaign calling him Temu Trump. Just like a knockoff Trump in the way that he talks, in the way that his coalition was acting. Again, they were saying things like make Australia great again. It wasn't that hard of a stretch. So yes, I will say that's part of it. Also, I mean, they literally had Donald Trump's campaign manager fly out there and help them with their campaign, which was working for a time until Trump himself came to power. But I will say, if you look at polling and, talk to Australians as I have, I would say compared to Canada, the Trump threat wasn't as big a deal. There was more going on here. And I think the thing that was most going on was that Peter Dutton was just a pretty bad candidate. Not very well liked. He looks like fucking Voldemort. Didn't have any clear policies that broke through the noise or stood out or made Australians think that he was the right man for not only the Trump challenge, but also like the cost of living challenge. I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying his party did fairly poorly. It was a pretty big collapse. He himself lost his own seat. And now I think, it's a pretty decisive Labor majority in red here, in a way that was completely unexpected going into this election. So it wasn't just Trump. I think the main policy that Dutton sort of ran on was around nuclear in Australia. And you might expect me to be pretty supportive of that, but looking more into it, it's kind of like his push for nuclear is similar to Elon Musk's push for government efficiency. I don't really trust the motives, and I don't really trust that he's the right man for the job. Looking more into it, again, I'm not an expert here on Australian politics, but again, Australia has a lot of land, a lot of sun, making it ideal for solar-based solutions. I think nuclear has a mix in that. Nuclear as a baseload power with renewables as a bonus is like what China's doing, and it's an incredibly forward-looking, stable grid to run. It's a great way to do it. That's not what he was proposing. He was basically talking about many, many more years of coal and gas as they built out this idea of nuclear. By the way, worth saying, Australia has never had a nuclear power plant ever. So they really are starting from ground zero. They actually had a national nuclear ban for most of this time. So it's going to be more of a ramp up. So again, all these make it like more difficult to pitch. And he didn't seem like he was into it for the right reasons. More of like, let's just delay renewable stuff, when in fact it should be all part of a mix. And again, there has been some great progress on solar in Australia. That being said, I mean, some of the campaigns ran against it were really fear-mongering. So I do hope that there's a build first, smarter, future forward person in Australia who can see the benefit of a comprehensive energy plan that uses almost all forms of clean energy. But I don't think Dutton was that guy. And this is basically the only thing he talked about. I mean, I'm actually not kidding. I talked to every Australian that I could, and I looked at opinion polls, and like the one idea of his that broke through the noise was like, we're going to get some nuclear plants. And that wasn't even particularly popular with Australians. So he didn't have a lot of other things to run on, and everyone else was kind of like Trump light. So he kind of got collapsed. I mean, I will say this is a very shockingly big win for Labor in Australia. What they do with it is now up to them. Similar to Canada, it's like, hey, you get this chance. Actually better than Canada, because Canada has a minority government. They didn't get a full majority of their parliament, while Australia did. So the Labor Party in Australia, Anthony Albanese, second term, gets a chance to, this is a mandate to sort of run his plans. Hopefully they work and improve life for Australians. Because again, the number one issue was still cost of living, which has been continually getting worse. Somebody has to figure that out. I don't know that anyone has a great answer anywhere in the world, but somebody has to figure that out, or they're eventually going to give me more and more unrest. And that's a common theme of what I've been saying. But just want to give you that update. Very interesting election. I will say one part of it that was particularly cringe, though, was the TikToks. I guess there's just a lot. It's a more important block, the youth voters in Australia right now. My God, the parties were doing some, especially I got to be honest with you, the Labor Party here was doing some cringe TikTok campaigns. I don't want to show them all, but this one really stood out to me.
Wake up. It's the first of the month. I brush my teeth and curl.
Authorized P. Erickson, ALP.
I mean, I'm not kidding, dozens and dozens of TikToks like that, just brain rot content that I guess they thought would, if that worked, that's almost worse. That's a bad sign. Anyway, that's Australian elections in a nutshell for maybe a non-Australian audience. Feel free to g'day mate in the comment if you want to add some more. HR, do you think koalas deserve the right to vote? That's a great question. That's a really powerful question. And what I'd say is that the koala has long been a friend and ally to man. They're cute, they're cuddly, they eat the important, do they eat bamboo? Or is that just pandas? Do koalas eat bamboo or just eucalyptus? Okay. Famously not? Well, not famous. So you're telling me that pandas and koalas would get along because they don't compete over food. Of course you would befriend a koala. Well, what's wrong with a koala? Let's do a quick check here. Cutest koala compilation ever. He's cute. He said ugly. First of all, even if he was ugly, look at that. He's so pleased. Mid. Dude, somebody saying mid is diabolical. Saying mid is like, you're not rating the sex appeal of the koala, bro. I think he's cute. I think he's pleased. I think he's, or she, I don't even know. And also you guys shouldn't know so much about venereal diseases of koalas. It's just a weird fact that you seem to have. What a cutie! They're literally the stupidest animals ever. Counterpoint. I don't rate koalas on their intelligence. Bro looks like a rat bear. They're so lazy they don't pull their weight. I'm sorry. Are we now under the impression that every member of the animal kingdom has to pull their weight? Like we're all in this together and that the bears, dogs, cats, and birds need to be pulling their weight economically? I guess what is the contribution to GDP that like koalas are giving? How much taxes do they pay? My cat pays rent. Do you even know anybody who, because I had a coworker at Twitch that did this, who tries to set up a custom Instagram account for their pet to turn it into like an influencer? Has anyone had a friend in their life try to do that? It's so tacky. Like just have your pet and enjoy it. Please do not try to turn it into a monetized social media. Oh, is the camera unfocused? The camera only looks unfocused if your brain is unfocused. So you've been watching too many reels, brother. People with sharp brains, they see it all crystal clear.